Forum. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Hello.
First item is to approve the minutes of the last meeting of January 20th.
So moved.
Have a second? Any comments? The only thing I have is at the top, change the special meeting to regular meeting. All in favor of approving?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so moved. Next item, Keith Burns forwarded a letter from Jerry and Duffy Shade, I think. And they were talking, they noticed that on the Martin Luther King Day, I think it was January 17th, the abnormal high tides in Mystic, and they were just commenting on it. And then they suggested that a possible solution might be to use Amtrak line as a flood barrier. First thing is general policy thing. I mean, this will set a precedent that we respond to inquiries that come into the town. Is that something we want to do on an ongoing basis for in case we get any more people to write to us about issues?
I mean, from my standpoint, you do all the work. So, no, I definitely think that it's worth that if we have public who are engaging with us, that we continue to foster that engagement, even if it means taking turns in response to those letters.
I would second that idea. So I think it's important to keep, if people are complaining about it or making some complaints, that they should be aware that, you know, it's something that's being considered.
Right.
We're aware of.
I agree.
Agreed.
Susan,
Oh, yeah, it's okay with me. Yep.
Julia? Okay. All right, as far as my draft response, any comments on that?
No, I think it's important that, you know, the Flood and Erosion Control Board is what can make some of those major decisions. And the more that people are aware that that's the avenue that we might have to go to make some of the hard infrastructure, then I think it's important to include that.
Any other comments?
Nope, I thought it was a very thorough response.
Okay, can I have a motion to adopt the letter or have me send the letter?
So moved.
Second. Any comments? Any more comments? Nope. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Tasking, we did get some updates on this from June, late email today. Marianne, do you want to bring up that email? I'm not in the same order here, but zoning regulations, planning department selected an outside consultant to start preparing these returns or regulations. I believe it will probably be a while before we see anything that we can comment on. She also said that the sustainability handbook, they're creating one and draft looks good, so that's a positive. Request for sustainability managers in the budget and will be part of the presentation to the Board of Finance. We'll talk about that a little bit later on the agenda as well. I'm surprised that the Board of Finance or the finance department doesn't have the schedule listed on the town website. In the past years, they gave the schedule for all the different portions that they were gonna hear. June said it's Tuesday at 7 PM, but there's nothing on the calendar yet. So we'll see whether they actually put it on the calendar in time to have a meeting. From what I recall, last year, there wasn't a public comment period in each of these little mini segments for while they're taking in the amounts. There is a big public meeting at the very end of the process, so that would be the time to comment, I think. But if you're not doing anything Tuesday, if it's actually scheduled, you can show up. In the solar array,
Excuse me, Rick.
yes,
This is- What do you think she means by all are welcome to attend to show support? If nobody can talk, nobody knows why we're there.
that's true, and I'm not really sure. Until they post an agenda, I don't know whether there'll be a comment period or not.
I know it was sort of rhetorical. It was just kind of crazy that she says that, and then if there's nothing, nowhere to voice any support for anything, yeah, it just seems kind of crazy. Okay, you can move on.
Yeah, no, last year I got to speak for like 30 seconds.
Okay,
And that was it. And that was only because Danielle asked me if I wanted to say anything. I don't know. Karen,
Yes, I don't know whether Lindsay's on this.
She's not.
she's not yet, no.
Okay, so the last meeting, Lindsay and I said we would write a letter to the selectmen in support of hiring the person, the engineer type person. And we wrote the letter, and I sent it off. It was a very nice letter. I didn't enter it into the record here. We never heard anything back, and it was, we sent it very officially. There's two, I'm just saying that we made our voices heard in a formal, positive way.
Good. It's typical from Danielle that you don't hear things back. I think she's just, the volume of email that she gets is just overwhelming. She doesn't respond to most of my emails. But, as long as you got in there, you voice your concerns. it's fine. The solar array project, apparently they're looking for a new vendor, so that's on hold. So we take that down.
Rick, when I was, excuse me for interrupting, when I was talking to Danielle, she said part of the problem was that they simply didn't have time to get things done that needed to be done on the solar array in time. And so I know that they may be looking for that, but Danielle also told me that they didn't have time to complete certain things that needed to be done. They're hoping to get it back on track.
Okay, I can only go by what June told us, so that's more information, so it's just, there's some sort of delay. Community outreach, Susan.
yes, community outreach. By this, I think what we're talking about is our Do You Know series that we pitched to Danielle a couple of months ago. In fact, I have run into her and she was extremely enthusiastic about the idea and very willing to keep supporting this. So in the January Selectmen's blog, she did use the blurb that we had written about, that I wrote on announcing the climate emergency declaration. And I'm guessing based on her comments that she will use something for February as well, which the only one she has at this point is the food waste blurb. Now, I'm very pleased that two of you have stepped up and taken on 3 each topics, Mary Ellen and Rick. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I am willing to write any topics that people are not interested in, but I wasn't going to sign myself up until you all had a chance, if interested, to pick your preferred topics. So I do think we do need to get a couple written by mid-March. So Danielle, will have stuff in her back pocket. So I'm going to ask Rick and Mary Ellen if you could get to at least one of them each. That would be 2, and I'll take on at least one other topic. Is there anyone else on the call at the meeting that would like to sign up for anything on the list?
Yeah, I'll do trees.
Okay,
I was thinking about that one.
all right. If you could try and get something done by the middle of March. That way-
Can do.
What's that?
I have to, I have to do a little article anyway for Avalonia on the Clean Water Act, so I imagine I could, in the process of looking that up, come up with something.
Okay, perfect. Sharon, clean water. Okay, perfect. So that's a real, oh, is that Mike?
Yep,
Are you-
I can take the meat consumption.
Meat consumption. All right.
Interested in that.
You're interested in meat consumption. Okay, perfect. Well, that's really great. If people, I know people get busy, but if we could get a few of these, like each one by the middle of March, we can give her like 6 of them and she can kind of sort through and decide how she wants to proceed. Right now, she seems very enthusiastic in that she is going to follow through. So this spreadsheet that you see on this on the screen is a Google Doc that you all can access, and I will update the spreadsheet with all the inputs you guys just gave me. But if you get a change of heart or you want to sign up for additional topics, you can find it on the Google Drive and input your own name. But I'll do the ones we just discussed.
That's already in there.
Yeah, I just updated it live while we're speaking.
Oh, perfect. You're ahead of me. Okay.
And if you want to bring up the Word document that shows the examples, you can just dump them in here. All you do is add it to it and it automatically saves it. And
Okay.
then Susan can edit it and, for length or whatever, or whatever she needs to do. That's on the same Google Drive.
So these are available where again?
And link this on the
On
Google Drive
that link that we sent out.
that's sent out. Yeah, there's
Right. And the
Wow.
plan is,
files in
And-
there.
yeah, and the plan is that Danielle will select one topic each month and insert it in her selectman's blog that she puts on the town website.
Rick, before we leave community outreach, I have something to add.
Okay.
In the process of getting ready to talk to Danielle, I spoke again with Bernard Pelletier, who's part of PACE. And I know Danielle is very interested in continuing to work with PACE. And there was a question came up about Heat Smart. And Rick, you were absolutely right that they have no more bandwidth to take in any more towns to do Heat Smart. But what they do have is something else. And it would be a chance for us to work toward in education and community outreach. And what they have is something that's called Heat Smart Light. And this is a program that PACE provides. The town just needs a contact with the resident. It can be Danielle's blog, it can be sewer bills, it can be the emergency system, any of this. But once PACE gets hold of this, they would do an outreach program of education on how to cut CO2 emissions by saving energy to people. And the way they do that is they set up a website that's particular for Stonington, which makes recommendations to residents on all the different ways that they can save energy. And PACE also would provide the names of contractors who could help. I think part of this is based on something that Eversource does, but it sounds to me as if something that this would be very helpful, and it would fulfill part of our commitment to outreach and education and communication and all that. I don't know if you'd be interested in it, but I thought I should bring it up because it is available. It's available through PACE, which Danielle wants us to work through. And it would help on the energy part of our education and outreach. Would
it
you like
sounds-
me to look into it further, Rick, or no?
Yeah, did you talk to Danielle about it at all to see whether she wants to go forward with it?
Yes,
And-
I did. Yes, I
and-
did, and she does, but I want to make sure you do too.
And are there any requirements that the town has to sign any kind of documents?
Well, I don't know if you have to sign anything. I didn't go that far because I was sort of waiting to see how she and you would feel about it. But it sounds promising because it does give residents individual ways to work on energy and cutting CO2 through their use of less energy or more efficient energy.
Yeah, members of task force think this is a good idea.
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah, so I think you can proceed with it and talk to Danielle and talk to Pace and find out how to set it up. This could even actually be one of these, do you know, paragraphs that introduce it to people as long as, along with whatever Pace is going to do to promote it.
I'll find out more about it now that I know you're all on board. There was another communication issue that came up, and that was that I asked Danielle when I was reporting to her back from our last task force meeting, if maybe there was some communication that went out where we could have just something like not a do you know, but maybe a do you know fact, and just have it be one sentence saying having to do with sea level rise, because the people in town are going to need to pay a great deal to fund a lot of these responses. If we were to make an impact there, a lot of it is going to fall on the taxpayers. And they need to get used to the idea that this is actually going to happen. I'm getting feedback from somewhere. I don't know where it is. Is somebody having, well, anyway. All right. but it would be something like, do you know that sea level rise, if unaddressed, will impact many of our municipal structures? Or do you know, I'm just using that, not, well, you can use another phrase or whatever, but do you know that our tax base depends on the tourist industry? A lot of our taxes depend on the tourist industry, and sea level rise will be very damaging to our tourist industry unless we address it. Just so people can kind of focus on the idea that this is something we have to address, because it's going to come down the road just like a train wreck if we don't get people thinking about how much this will cost and what it will mean to them if we don't address it. That was all. And that didn't go any further either, but I just thought it was an idea that I would throw out there.
Sure.
This is not related to that. Or
Okay.
in a way it
Well,
is.
Then wait a minute. Well, the coastal resiliency plan has a lot of that detail in there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's just a matter of, whether the people are interested enough to look at the plan. But it's also, the Board of Selectmen have to decide what they're going to do with the flood prevention, climate resiliency, and erosion control board, whether they're going to actually staff it or whether they're going to do it. Because there are, big decisions that have to be made. If you were in Mystic over Martin Luther King, you saw it flooded. Flooded places don't usually flood. And, this is one thing ever since we've been doing climate studies. It's like, well, what are we going to do for downtown Mystic? Are we going to let it flood? Are we going to try and block the water? Are they going to look at putting a barrier further out in the river? But that's decisions that are beyond the scope of this task force.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, this was just a sort of education moment, like a sound bite saying, are you aware that this is what will happen if we don't address it? Just so people would get used to the idea that we are going to have to address it and they maybe are going to have to pay. And if we don't get these things settled, it will be a disaster. So anyway, that's all that was. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
I mean, you could write a paragraph on that if you, and do it, put it in Susan's list of things to do, if you wanted to.
Okay, that's a thought. Yeah, I just thought that, people sort of live in sound bites these days. And I thought of just month after month, they were hit with one more thing that was going to happen to them. But I think that's just a good idea, Rick. I mean, I can certainly do it for Susan's project, because I think they do have to know it.
Karen?
Not Susan's project, it's our project.
Well, yes, but I mean, the project led by Susan. There, how's that?
All right.
You take that. Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
So this is sort of related, and I didn't know where to fit this in, but in the process of working with Lindsay to write this letter to the selectmen about supporting the position, I know the position comes up a little later. I somehow wound up talking to the man who's the head of the Economic Development Commission,
Mhm.
and his name is Kevin.
Bowdler.
Thank you. And we had a really good conversation on the telephone. Now I know that Economic Development Commission doesn't normally come to mind when you're thinking about, probably not the first thing when you're thinking about coastal resiliency and all the concerns we had, but he was one of their projects, and I think this is one of their projects is this exit 90, right? They've sent out surveys and they want to make it nicer for tourism. It seems to me, based on very limited knowledge of elevation and perking and all that sort of thing, that if some of the infrastructure is going to move, this would be a good place to move it. So we had a really good discussion, and one of the things he was definitely interested in was the electric charging stations. He said there was somebody that was really interested. It was a good idea. So I guess what I was wondering, it may not be that we're as contrary in philosophy as perhaps you might think off the top of your head, that would be a good group to talk to at some point, to try to figure out whether, as they're planning to do the development up here, that some of the concerns that Julia just brought up wouldn't be a tiny bit alleviated by having things move out more in this direction, which I know people have been talking about, and further north too.
Yeah, I have a little bit different viewpoint of the Economic Development Commission.
He mentioned that, and you
and-
might.
And, well, I mean, their primary, when you look at what they put in for the POCD, it's to make the villages walkable, livable, but they ignored the fact that sea level rise is going to impact all the villages. And they heavily promoted the wind development, affordable housing down in Pawcatuck, and that's going to be impacted by sea level rise. So it's not the best place to put affordable housing. And then which we're going to get to later on, there is a draft of the affordable housing plan, and if you read the language in there, they hired a consultant, but it pretty much says, develop where you can, everywhere you can, and don't be too concerned about the environment and sea level and things like that. So, but we'll get to that at the end.
I still think there might be a place to talk about, for instance, solar power and charging stations in this area. And maybe if we just, I'd like to lay that on the table as something to consider, because they'd be a very good ally for some of the things we've been talking about.
Well, do you
No,
want, do you want to move forward with it and see whether they want to have a joint meeting or?
I could test the water. I mean, I had a really good conversation. He was interested in talking more. I just got back from out of town yesterday. I've been gone for 3 weeks, but I didn't want to talk more because number one, I don't know as much as some of the other people in the room, but the other thing, I didn't want to put my foot in it.
No, I think they're finally coming around a little bit because they are, their latest thing is that look at exit 90 and 92 for, development projects. When they had that exit 90 study, my comment to them was we need to look at the SLAM mapping that shows what roads in town are going to flood. Because you could develop exit 90 here, but eventually sea level rises. The only way you're going to be able to get in and out of here is on I-95. This Old Mystic's going to flood, and it's going to flood down on 27 down below. So it's going to be like an island unto itself. And granted, it's going to be a number of years before that happens, but it is eventually going to happen. So, but it got to develop somewhere. And
Is it okay with the committee that I explore the possibility of talking together some
yeah,
evening?
we'll talk to anybody.
We have to structure it so that it doesn't go all over the place and just try to get some issues that might be positive.
Yeah,
Be a good idea.
and as far as EV charging stations, there's a lot of money coming online in Eversource, and the state are doing a lot over the next 7 to 10 years. There's a whole bunch of money, but we need some town employee to take the lead on.
People, parking lots around here where people were interested in making them more porous and using solar. I mean, it would just be it was a nice conversation. So I will look into it carefully.
There does seem to be a definite lack of coordination of a lot of the ideas, so I think the more we can talk to the groups and get an interchange, so we become a resource to them, they become a resource to us. I think that would be very helpful for the town in general. It astonishes me to see how many things are going on separately in town that are on the same issues, but have no coordination
Yeah,
whatsoever.
and if the climate was static, that would be, I guess, okay in a way, but it's certainly not, so.
Kevin's out of town for the next 3 weeks. He's out of the country. Yeah. So
Well,
don't be discouraged if you try to call him and you don't get an answer.
all right, I'll crank up the conversation.
Okay, the remainder items under tasking, item 4, I don't have any updates on. But Dennis, did you have anything with the Wood Pawcatuck River?
The only thing I had heard, I talked to Kevin, and he said that the meeting that they were supposed to have last month did not happen, so there's nothing to report.
Okay. Yeah, the other things didn't happen. Grant opportunities, from the circuit update.
What number are we on? Where are we?
6.
6? Wait a minute. Didn't we have something after survey of, aren't I supposed to do people's action for clean energy? Where was that?
We've been discussing throughout.
Right. I was going to update on my discussion with the first selectman, if you want me to do that.
Okay, I thought you already did that. If you want to say some more,
No.
go ahead.
No, that was, yeah, that had to do with outreach for us. I knew that Danielle had an interest in, as you say, in continuing with PACE. And I knew, Rick, that you were very interested in getting more charging stations. And I know before I talked to Danielle, I talked I called Pam and I called Mark Scully to see what their impressions were of how the task force was responding to the overall PACE program. And everybody seemed in agreement that there was just no possibility that the board was willing to take on a full PACE program. but there were two areas where they could help us that were very specific and limited. And the first one, which I knew Rick was very interested in and Danielle was very interested in, were the matter of the charging stations. And what happened then was I decided apparently PACE is very closely connected with something called, and I may be pronouncing it wrong, it's PURA, Pura. And apparently they have a very, very good working relationship so that if PACE prepares our data, Pura is much more likely to accept us for a grant. And so I thought about where we might want to have charging stations and what we might be asking for in order to get some. And so what I did was to call several places that I thought were good candidates. One was Big Y. Apparently Big Y has put in charging stations in 2 new places, one in Clinton, but they don't have one in our Big Y here. So that was one place we might put one. I didn't want to put any that were close to the aquarium because we're already getting a couple there. But also McQuaid's has the same issue. I called them, they don't have one. And the other thing I thought about was a Seaport. I called them, they don't have one. So with that in mind, we would have places where we could put more charging stations, which we obviously need because we're a tourist town. And so we would have some places where some areas that we could recommend as places we would want to put charging station and then work with PACE to get the data together to make the proposal to Pura, see if we could get it. And Danielle liked that very much. She agreed that we certainly need more charging stations. And so I don't know where you want me to take that, but I can go back to PACE and say, listen, this is what we're thinking. We need a lot more charging stations. We've identified some places. I'd be happy to hear any other suggestions, but we've identified some places beyond what we're already getting in terms of charging stations. And then see what they say, see if they can in fact help us and get us started on something like that. Would that have any appeal?
Well, it does, but the task force can only work on things that are tasked by the board of selectmen or make recommendations to them. So
Right.
if Danielle wants to tell us that we have authority to engage with PACE and Pura, then she can do that. But in reality, that really should be that the person that they're trying to hire, job or some town employee, that we don't really have any authority to sign any documents or engage with anything.
No, it would have to be.
As far as other places, first place I would put one would be Town Hall. They're going to redo the parking lot. I suggested this to Danielle before. They're slated to redo the parking lot. They should put in charging stations at Town Hall.
That's a good idea.
They should also put them at the district hall where they have all the meetings in town.
Mhm.
Both those places are outside of the flood zone. And you would think that permitting would be fairly easy because they're both town properties. As far as the other places, the businesses, we'd have to look in what the actual program is. They might be incentives for commercial businesses or nonprofits to do things like that. The Seaport's a definite one. As far as the other businesses, they do have to go through zoning stuff. There is a Tesla station being put in right across the street at the outlets. So that's pretty close to McQuaid's, with whether McQuaid's want another one. Something that close. It all depends.
Yeah.
I think we'd also want to find more places in some places in Pawcatuck. So
That's a good idea.
you don't want to select them maybe at the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center. that's down there. It is kind of in a low area, but it's not as low as the immediate downtown area. I also know that all the GM car dealerships are getting charging stations put in, whether they'll be available to the public or not, I don't know, but so like Brewsterline and Millennium will have their own charging stations eventually. So,
That's wonderful.
but I would say, yeah, run with it and find out what needs to be done, and if Danielle has to authorize us to do something, or she needs to sign documents, then let her do it.
Perfect. Okay, thanks very much. I'll go ahead with that.
But not to be redundant, but the old Mystic Village would be, if you're driving somewhere, you have lunch, you could shop, I mean, I would think that would be a win-win situation.
Yeah, well, pretty much any of the motels too.
That, you have to excuse my ignorance on this, but the charging station. Now, I understand this is a place you go to charge up your EV. Now, from my understanding, this is about a 15-minute to a half-hour process.
Depends on what level station it is.
Okay, and these charging stations would be targeted towards who? Are members of the community, or is it the people coming through?
Anybody that has an EV car that doesn't have a place to charge.
But I think from a marketing point of view, for the people who are interested in development, they might be very much interested in attracting people off the freeway to come and, so that's not members of the community. Maybe that's a downside. I don't
Right.
necessarily see it.
This is, I understand the desire to have charging stations, but my first question is, what's the demand for the charging stations? I mean, we can have a charging station within 1 mile of each other all over town, but is that saturating something that, there's really not a demand for? I know demand will be growing, obviously.
But I believe that's part of Pure's process, is that they'll figure out where the best places to put them are. If you look at there's maps online that show the charging stations around the world, around the country. And you look over in Groton, there's one at the library. There's, where else are they? I think there's one that's up at that town hall. There are different places. One in the city of Groton down at Washington Park.
No, there was money that is currently being either talked about or released from the federal government that's looking to develop charging stations near the interstates.
There's that, but there's also the utilities, Eversource and UI have a program, and they're putting in a lot of money to put charging stations throughout the state.
All right, are they going to be running them, or are these going to be franchised?
I imagine they're all franchised. I don't think they want to maintain them. They'll probably subcontract out to one of the many charging stations installers.
Right, well, I'm just showing you a lot of my ignorance on the thing. I have to do a little bit more digging on it. Is there a place that I can go to specifically that talks about the business aspect of this?
There is, I think I put it on here.
The EV Club of Connecticut.
Yes.
7C.
Yeah. If you go to the EV Club Connecticut and look through they've got expensive things. They've got some YouTube videos of presentations they made. And they can tell you more about what's going to happen. They'd like to see happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else in 5 that we haven't touched on.
What is, excuse me, Rick?
Yep.
What is this handbook, the employee handbook?
Yeah, I can forward you a copy of the the one we sent to the first selectman, it was from Homer, Alaska. It was a 13-page document that, they required all of their employees to read when they got hired. And it just, there's a lot of little tidbits about, you know, what they should do to reduce their environmental impact. Things like, you know, when you have to take a vehicle out, you know, take the most efficient one, things like that. That was right before you and Mike came on board, I believe, that we sent that to the first selectman, and they picked up on it and are developing something for Stonington.
And I assume that the new position, there's a job description for that.
Not yet. They gotta get it approved in the budget first.
But haven't we provided for them a job description of what the person should do?
No, that would be up to the selectmen to write it up. And they have, we did provide them a PowerPoint that showed justifications from around the country of what people do, and did, you know, what other cities about the size of Stonington are doing, and but as far as the actual job description, that would be something that the selectmen does.
I see.
Groton, I talked to the person who is sort of the equivalent of Brick in Groton yesterday, and he said that what they had requested in their job description was someone who could write and administer grants, as well as to do other kinds of things coordinating climate change. So I don't know. I guess we'll get to say something at some point, but I would think that given the recurring problem that we have nobody to write grants, maybe we could make that part of our request.
Mhm.
Yeah, I listened to the last meeting of the Groton Sustainability Task Force today, and they're quite frustrated with their new council as well. That position hasn't been posted yet. They're hoping to get it posted sometime this month, so there'll be a description out there. But there's a lot of job descriptions. I mean, there's a lot of towns that are hiring, and there's a lot of job descriptions on the web that you can look at and say, yeah, that's what we want. Take bits and pieces from that. New grant opportunities. These are from the Circus site. US DOT funding. There is a boatload of money in that bill. It's like $1 billion. And when you look at past awards, I mean, there's a lot of things that Stonington says they want to do, and you know, that get funded from this, and these are multi-million-dollar grants. So I mean, it's something that they should look into if they are serious about doing some of these projects. The FEMA resources is just a large, fairly large document that just has all the FEMA grants and how to apply for them, and where you can get money for different things. So that's and that was new as of December 21st. The USDA invest $1 billion in Climate Smart. A lot of that is aimed at farmers, and I don't know, I thought the town was working on establishing some kind of farm bureau, farm commission, but I guess from what I remember hearing a while back was that they only have an informal network of farmers. But you know, this is to do, you know, a lot of no-till farming and biochar and things like that. And you know, it would be good if they can get the word out to that group of farmers. It also might be good for the town if they're going to go forward with that composting and recycling food program. There might be money there to expand that more than what they were thinking of. Public awareness outreach, the budget update. I found this from the minutes of the joint meeting, which last year they let me know in advance that they had the meeting, but they didn't let me know in advance this time. So they just had it. On the positive side, it's better than we've done in the past. But they did reduce the amount of money requested for the climate line item from 500,000 down to 250,000. But they did say that they are supporting the hiring of a sustainability manager. I think it's a mistake that they cut it, but because that just shows the Board of Finance that, well, even though it's a ranked priority A, they didn't think enough of it to keep the full amount in there and let the Board of Finance cut it. And one reason that we're asking for that $500,000, I sent you this write-up of Duck, North Carolina resiliency project. And this is basically raising less than 1,000 feet of road up a couple feet in the air and doing some nature scaping and marsh building. And they're projected to cost up $1.8 million to do that small stretch of road. Well, Danielle told us, or it was either Danielle or June said that they have to do something at Home Street for the repair of the seawall, and they have to do something on Lord's Point. And chances are that they're going to have to raise up those roads in addition to repairing the seawalls. And all these grants require cost share. The one they Duck got, it requires a 25% cost share. So if we get $250,000, that means they could go apply for a grant for around $1 million. And chances are that's not going to be enough money to do much, but it's better than nothing. So we'll see how far that goes. And as June said, supposedly there's a Board of Finance meeting on Tuesday for the SIP line items. It's not on the town website yet, so I don't know whether that's an actual date, but you can look there. And as I said before, from what I recall last year, there wasn't a public comment period in these preliminary budget meetings. It's just pretty much for the Board of Finance to take in and consider things, and then they do deliberations, and then at the very end there is a public meeting, a public hearing for anyone in town to go talk about anything in the budget or anything that's not in the budget. And as I said before, and Lindsay, I don't know whether you know, because you have a connection to the Board of Finance. Last year, or in previous years, they always posted the schedule for the budget meeting on either on the Finance Committee or the Finance Department website, and it's not posted anywhere. So I don't know, how they expect people to take an interest in the budget.
I don't have any information, but I can probably, send word that we would be interested in that going up.
Thanks.
That was the schedule for the budget, you said?
Yeah, and I mean, it's out there somewhere between the people that are on the Board of Finance, because in their minutes, they refer to whether the schedule changed. And it's like, well, nobody knows what the schedule is except for the Board of Finance, so. Yeah,
Okay, also,
normally they post, because there's like 5 or 8 budgets, budget meetings before they get to the end. And so,
that information may be floating around somewhere, you're saying, so. Okay, I'll look into it.
all right.
Oh, wait, hold on. Am I allowed to, I have this?
Yeah,
So it does exist.
okay,
So I will see if I can
thanks.
get them to share that, since now I know it exists and I know what I'm asking for.
All right, thanks.
Okay,
What else did you make magically appear? Can you also make 500,000 extra dollars appear on the bottom line item?
Okay, EV Club of Connecticut, we talked about a little bit. They've got a lot of information on electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging stations, so anybody that wants information. And in addition to the commercial program for EV charging stations, there is a rebate program for residential. So anybody that is looking to put something in their house, there is money available to help pay for that. So you can look at buy a electric vehicle and you want to add a charging station, look on that website. The next 3 items are bills that the governor is suggesting to the state legislature this year. It's a short legislative session, and I don't know if you know, the state representatives, every other year is a very long session, and they deal with budget and everything, and this one is a short session. It only goes for like 3 weeks, I think. But, and these bills are numbered now. When you click on the link, you'll see the actual numbers, so it helps when they have the hearings to send an email, and it's very easy to do, telling them that you're in support of it. And it's also helpful that you can send emails to our local elected officials, bugging them to support these things. They may or they may not, but the more people that write, the more aware they become of it.
How do we write to the Board of Finance?
What?
Is there a list somewhere of where we would get the addresses of these people we can write to? I mean, I know how to get to the selectmen, but.
Well, for these bills, you're writing to Senator Summers and Representative Howard.
No, I meant for the budget bills. I was still on that. I'm sorry.
For the local budget,
Yes.
you can send it to the Department of Finance, Jim Sullivan, and they can distribute it to ask them to distribute it to the, or you can send it to Danielle's office, and Stacy Haskell will send it to the Board of Finance.
Thank you.
You can also write letters to the editor if you're interested. And say, you know, climate is important and we need money to support these things. That's all I have. That's all that's on the agenda. Any comments from anyone else or anything anybody want to discuss?
Do you have on the agenda the $106 million boost for Long Island Sound that was announced in the?
No, because the agenda came out before that, which is another pot of money that is available. And then also, if you saw on the news, something came out 2 days ago that said sea level rise is coming quicker and higher than previously predicted. And that was an NOAA publication. So those links will probably be in the next agenda.
Yeah, there was a good New York Times article as well.
Yeah, the trouble with, like New York Times and things, I try not to use those. I try and find alternate sources because they're, you have to subscribe to see the articles and,
Oh, anytime.
well, yeah, I mean, you can, but if you put it on the agenda, people click on it, then they can't see it because they're not a subscriber. So you can usually find an alternate, website that has the same information.
But there was a good article in the Wall Street Journal as well, and the Wall Street Journal has an impossible paywall. You can't even copy things to send to people, so.
Hey, Rick, it's Mike. Quick question. You made a reference to a town food waste program. Forgive me for being behind the times, but just curious as to what's going on there as I try to get up to speed here.
It hasn't started yet, and Danielle just mentioned it the last time she was here, that the public, or the transfer station is, they had a demonstration program, and now they're going to go ahead with some type of pickup, to recycle or, take the food waste out of the garbage stream and into the
Yeah.
So details are to come on that.
Yeah.
Not sure how long it's gonna take, but
That's great. I've been reading about how, California just passed a law to that effect, composting law in effect, as has Vermont. And I was reading how Meriden, Connecticut, there's a pilot program going on around that as well. So
yeah, our our transfer station people are fairly in the lead on a lot of things. And they do a good job with what they have. So there might be something on the town website. I'm not positive, but
yeah, appreciate it.
anybody else? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Julia, did you want to say something or are you just voting?
I'm just voting.
Oh,
Second.
okay.
No, thank you.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Hey,
Rick.
everybody.
Night all.
Everybody.
See you on St. Patrick's Day.
I know, I'll see you then. Wear your green.
They're gonna be green,
Bye.
surf.